Hello, everyone. This is Teresa. And before we dive into this week's podcast episode, I am so excited to tell you about a free download we have that goes with this episode. This resource will show you how the Real Life Process Coach certification and the RLP Coaches Network are now available for you to receive continuing coach education hours through the ICF. We wanted to make a resource available to you so you could see easily what you can receive through coach education hours with the ICF by partnering with us in the work that we have here at the Real Life Process. Just go to the reallifeprocess.com/ICFCCEs. Again, the reallifeprocess.com/ICFCCEs. We'll have that link in the show notes as well. Now, let's get into celebrating this wonderful partnership that we now have with the International Coach Federation.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Doing What Matters podcast. I'm your host, Teresa McCloy.
And I'm your co-host, Erica Vinson, and we are thrilled that you're listening in today as we dive into discussions about life, business, and all the things that truly matter.
So here on the podcast, we embrace a holistic approach to living, a way of life that's rooted in rest, not rush. It's about connecting to your real self, your real life, and your real work, and remembering who God uniquely created you to be and define success through a different lens.
So whether you're here to find inspiration, practical advice, or just a moment of connection, we're glad you're here. Let's dive into today's conversation.
I will say, first of all, if you've been following the podcast for a while, especially through video or through the YouTube channel, you're going to notice something different today because we are now live and on video. And if you've never engaged with us over on our YouTube channel, we invite you to do. Up to this point, we've pretty much, especially since you and I have been co-hosting together, Erica, we've pretty much done it just through audio and just put a standing image there. But we're up in the game as of this week. Erica's not really sure if we should be up in the game or not.
It's a whole new level.
It's a whole new level. It actually is, but we're up for the challenge. And we know that we can engage with more people when you can see our face and connect to us. So if you really like that visual view and you've always wondered even, what do these people look like? You now have the opportunity live and in person over on YouTube. And we invite you to subscribe and just engage with us in that platform. I will say before we dive into our content today, Erica, probably about 6 months ago, I actually subscribed to YouTube at YouTube premium level so that I wouldn't have all the commercials, so the grandson wouldn't be interrupted on his Miss Rachel videos. And my music wouldn't be interrupted because I use YouTube a lot to listen to music and just have it on my TV. But I am blown away and amazed by all the content that is there and how much you can find. And we all know in the marketing world, it's one of the biggest search engines and all of that. So if you own a business and you're an entrepreneur, little tip before we dive into today's conversation, you might want to check out how do you get some of your content on YouTube. It's not, if we can do it, anybody can do it. So we are up in the game here at the Doing What Matters podcast. And Erica, thanks for being up to the challenge.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into even what we have for today's conversation and where we want to go today. We are actually going to talk about something we're excited about at the Real Life Process in the business work that we do. Erica and I both work through this lens of helping other coaches to grow their businesses. And that's one of the things that we do. And we do it through a certification that we have for coaches. And that is a program that coaches go through and live video training and all of that. We won't go into all the bells and whistles of the program on this episode. But what we're excited to celebrate is that we have received approval from the International Coach Federation to be an education program, to be in where a coach can receive continuing credits for the work that they do when they come through our certification program. And If you're not familiar with this world, that's okay. Hang on. Continue to listen because it is a big achievement for us. It's a big thing. You worked on this project for probably the last 6 months in some way, shape, or form and helped us get this credentialing, fill out the application, do all of the writing to ICF, turn it all in. And then we waited patiently to see if they would approve our program. And they did. And we have actually been approved at a couple of different levels. So, Erica, I'm just going to ask you because you did all the legwork on this. So, kudos to you. What is the ICF? Let's start there. International Coach Federation. Even if you're a business owner and you're listening in and you know nothing about coaching, I want to encourage you to continue to listen because if you're hiring a coach, this is one way that you can say, okay, does this coach have any skill development? Have they done any training? Not that there's great coaches out there that are not a part of the International Coach Federation. There's other training programs. I'm not saying there's not, but let's talk about what the ICF has done to create the standards in the industry.
Absolutely. The International Coaching Federation is really a leading global organization for coaching.
Yeah.
And they are dedicated to advancing coaching profession and really setting high standards. They provide independent certification, and then there's a network even that's a part of that. And why this is important, you said something so key there for business leaders or someone looking for a coach. The life coaching, leadership coaching, coaching in general as an industry is largely unregulated in the United States and in several parts of the world. And that really just means that there's no specific licenses or certifications that are required to become a coach. And so that can be an advantage for someone who says, gosh, I want to take a weekend course and do a deep dive over 8 hours, and I'm going to walk away with their certificate and I'm going to do some coaching, and they can hang out a shingle. But if you're really looking for someone who has been professionally trained, the International Coaching Federation is the gold standard. And that just means that there's a large and wide range of expertise within the field. And those coaches who have been credentialed by the ICF have gone through some rigorous training and some really intentional work.
I would agree. And as I said, you don't have to be ICF certified to be a great coach. I know people personally who that is not their background in training. But if you are that business owner that says, how do I know? What are some things I can look for? Most coaches that have gone through ICF training with a training school. So there's lots of schools that could teach you. I often compare it to college work, right? So there's lots of colleges you can go to get a degree. And many business owners, you have your own places you have to go to get continuing ed. I think of in the health field or in real estate or in insurance. The coaching space is not regulated in that way, but ICF years ago started their own way of regulating. And so there's lots of schools you can get your coach training at and then come back to the ICF, take those hours that you did and apply them with the International Coach Federation and say, now I want to get your credential that matches up with every other person that has done this amount of work. So where I look at it from the college level, Erica, is I often say this may be simplifying it, but ACC is the first level that the ICF gives in credential. That to me is like possibly getting your bachelor's degree in coaching, if I compare it to college work. And then PCC, which is professional certified coach, is almost like getting your master's. I've done more hours. I've logged more training. I've done more continuing ed. Every 2 to 3 years, we have to renew that certification. And then to me, the MCC, which is like the highest you can get in the coaching field, it's like having your doctorate. People that I know that are MCC coaches, I know as a coach, the level of work they've had to put in, the mentor coaching they've done with another coach at an MCC level. the credentialing of or the certification hours they put in. I have high respect for anyone who's gone to the MCC level in coaching. So that's often how I think of it is what would that compare to in my world or whatever. So I have a lot of respect for the ICF in what they're doing. And that is why we even chose at the Real Life Process to say, okay, we serve a lot of coaches that do their ICF credentialing. How can we help them out in this? Kind of what did we have to do to even get this credentialing and being an educator for the ICF?
I love the way that the International Coach Federation has really raised the bar because you mentioned things like nursing or whatever you are, a doctor, veterinary. There's continuing education. And so the ICF has said, really to continue to help you to grow, we want to require that to maintain your credentials. So it's not a once and done. We want to be lifelong learners. So what we did, we started with our coach certification program. And it's a 6-week training program with a 7th week that's orientation. And it's got some peer coaching that's a part of that. And we just outlined really that curriculum and what it looks like. And then we designate, are those really tied to the International Coaching Federation has 8 core competencies. And so we had to designate, are those reflective in learning of the core competencies, or are those resource development, business development parts of the program that we offer? And then, as you said, they go through with a fine-tooth comb and look at the work that we've done. They look at the guidebook that we sent in, the resources that we have available to our coaches that are part of that program, and they vet all those resources and then say, yes, you are an accredited continuing education provider. And then really the second part of that is we have a network of certified coaches. So once our coaches go through the cohort, they continue. And with us about 48 weeks of the year, we're doing network calls once a week. And we thought for these coaches that are really dedicated to being present and to continue their training, wouldn't it be amazing if we took the work that we had done in the certification cohort and actually use these 4 calls a month that they're investing in because they are aligned with the core competencies or they are resource development, and outline those 48 weeks and just see if we can get accredited to actually provide those continuing coach education hours and credits for them. And so we were absolutely thrilled to be able to say, hey, because of the work you're already doing, we just want to give you credit for that. And you can actually use that toward your continuing education.
Absolutely. And we have several hours that you can get. You can get them through our cohort and just that learning. And then if you decide that, hey, if I'm going to continue to be a lifelong learner, let me do it with a community of other coaches and I can get credit for that as well. I'm doing 2 things at once. I'm investing in myself, but I'm also getting to say, oh, that counted. And so we now track that. You're working in that process of, I'm going to send you a quarterly certificate that gives you your hours. It makes it easy. And I know for me, when I was having to renew my certification, you're looking for where could I go to find a win-win. I don't just want to sit through a program to check a box,
Yeah.
but I want to be able to bring in other tools that I can do, other things. And we see in the coaching space, people will go out and go, oh, I'm going to do a training and an assessment so I can meet some CCE hours. I'm going to train in this. And that's what we're doing with the process. When someone gets certified in our process, they get the CCEs for the ICF, but they're learning how to use some assessments that we have. They're learning a process they can take their clients through with coaching. They're learning coach skills development. You teach that inside of there. They're learning even a coaching framework that they might be able to use. Really, in our certification, you're getting lots of tools. So we think it's a win-win and a great partnership to have these 2 things together and to be able to offer them together.
Teresa, one of the things that I love about what you just highlighted was beyond just sitting in front of an online course, which is a lot of information that may help to continue to grow you. It's really transforming to be able to do that work in community. So the application, our coaches just get a lot of energy around being together in that growth space.
You mentioned a little bit, Erica, in what you just said of there are different types of CCEs. What are the two types of CCEs that people can earn through our program or any other ICF program?
Yeah, part of the requirements that the ICF has is for a certain amount of core competency continuing ed hours. And that means that training is specifically connected to the 8 core comps. So you're learning things like ethical practice and cultivating safety and trust and maintaining presence and evoking awareness. You could go through all those, but all of those 8 core competencies are core. They're foundational and they give us a framework even for coaching. So there's so much there. Even though the profession is unregulated, there's handles to say, even though your coaching style and your approach may be different than my approach, we have this same foundation that we're honoring as we step into the arena with a client. The other type of continuing education credit is a resource development. And so that's where you are gaining a tool or a resource. It might be even something in your business development that you're learning to grow as a coach. That is that real life application towards your professional development. And there's a certain amount of hours that are professional development as well in that resource space. So we offer both the core competency and the resource development.
I know when we got back the results of what we got approved for, we were so excited to say someone can get almost all of what they need every 3 years to reapply or to either keep the level they're at or move up to the next level.
Mm.
It's pretty exciting to say, hey, if you hang out with us for a while
Yeah.
and you go through this program and then continue learning with us, you're going to meet your requirements.
The ICF requires every 3 years for a coach to have 40 credits or 40 hours toward continuing education. 24 of those hours are in core competencies as part of requirements. The rest of those can be resource development. 3 of those hours, specifically of the 40, need to be in ethics. And the ICF has a free course, or you can do that in another way as well to meet that ethics requirement. There's 2 levels, as you said, even toward someone who might be interested in going, okay, what does the real life process offer and how does it line up with what I might need? So our initial coach certification cohort offers 13 of those core competency hours and then 7 resource development. So there's 20 initial there. And then with our newest accreditation in the network, which is all certified coaches. So they've been through a cohort or a certification with us, and now they have the opportunity to gain 15 core competency hours or credits in core comps, and then 15 credits or hours in resource development. They could get most all of what they need just by being a part of the real life process.
I'll be honest to say, as founder, creator, you've been there with me the whole way. Like when we were first streaming this, I would have never said we'd be at this level. So it's a dream come true to celebrate the accomplishment of what we've done and how we've laid it out and how it works. Like we have such a proven system and process for coaches to use. And we see that it gives them so many tools and so many handles for their own self in personal and professional development, but also is meeting this other need. Now, I will say this, not everyone who comes through our coach certification for our tools is on an ICF track. We have other people that are coming from other places where they're wanting to walk alongside people and they want a process to do it with. But we have found such great value in saying, even to those people, whether they're in the ICF track or not, we have this distinction. We've been approved. We know our system works. That is in much regard to you because filling out this application was not an easy feat. You did a lot of hours and legwork to really look at a year-long program and break it down and break it apart and say, what are we doing? One of my gifts and one of my things I love is organization and structure. I think as people, we love rhythms and routines, and our bodies are wired that way. Our minds do better in that way. And that is one of the things that I think helped us with this accreditation is we do things. Our community of coaches is not just haphazard, random. group of people. So for the ICF to look at us and say, oh, they're teaching coaching skills development once a month. Oh, they're doing something around marketing and branding, but yet during that time, that's a resource development. Oh, they're teaching their curriculum and their resources and going deeper with those. And then they practice those as coaching. We do spotlight coaching, and then you help us look at it through evaluating that coaching and doing some peer type things. And we learn so much from observing other coaches. What would you say about that experience yesterday, Erica? Because we both got to have that on the 5th week of the month. When we have those months, we do that. And it was just so much fun yesterday.
Because you can see us, if you go back and rewind the video, the minute you started talking about it, you could probably see my energy and my excitement just well up, because it is absolutely, it's such a sacred space to be able, and you get that in a coach training program often as well, but to offer that to our network members to say, we're going to actually witness a coaching session here and sit in the space and listen together, and then go through and use the PCC markers, those professional coach certification markers that the International Coaching Federation has outlined as part of even how we process the call, and what do we notice, and how do we see the agreement, and what's the awareness look like, and then what's the action that the client walked away with. And it's just such a powerful experience. Coaching is such a confidential and safe space that when we can really dive into a learning space and do that collaboratively, there's so much energy and so much excitement that you can take away. And so I was thrilled for our coaches. I always learn something in that space. So it's one of my favorite weeks of the month.
It's interesting too. I actually had coaching calls today because we do private coaching with some of the coaches that are in that network community. And it was, everybody brought it up as a highlight of what they learned or what it reminded. In fact, some booked a call specifically to talk about what they had learned in that space and wanted to process it, and even how they show up as a coach. So it's like getting to watch, you never get to go in the surgery room, right? You never get to go in and be in, we've all watched the TV shows where there's the observation. And that's what you feel like you're getting to do. And it's so fun to do it and to watch that. It's also part of the training that we do in our certification is you do peer-to-peer practice around our content and around our process so that you learn to be better. We learn by doing and failing and doing again. We learn more from failure than we do success. So coming into that space and having that be a part of our program, I think is super helpful. Why do you think, Erica, that this type of credentialing matters in the coaching industry? Why is it important to you, even as an ICF certified coach?
I think, first of all, I'm a lifelong learner. And so I value having a framework or a structure and standards that I can be in community with. And the neat part about this type of credential and then the continuing ed offer that we offer really is that there's kind of a camaraderie. Even though often we're coaching solo, I know that there are coaches around the globe that are engaging and putting these things first and honoring them with their clients. And so I think it just helps me always to go, what's the challenge? Where did I really show up well today and honor those competencies? And what are my growing edges? Because every call, there's something there that I can celebrate. And then there's something that I need to continue to stretch and to grow. And coaching is one of those things you cannot plan for. So there's so much trust, but it does give you a process and a way of just being able to have some guardrails to say, here's some places to begin. And within that, you get to dance in the moment, trust the Holy Spirit, trust your client, and the Holy Spirit's working in them as well. And it's just a beautiful process.
It is. And I know for me, and just even how my personality is, that guidelines, those guardrails, those reminders to come back to the basics are always helpful for me. It's not a simplification, but it's back to the basics, back to what is the agreement. I'm not consultative. I can go consultative in my coaching. Nothing wrong with having your own style and all of that. I'm not shaming myself in that. But if I get too far that way, I can walk away from a call and go, that was a little too much advice giving, even if the client had some wins around it and some forward motion or whatever. It didn't draw out the depth of them. And so I think whenever I have this process that the ICF is aligned to come back to, it serves me well and it actually serves the client to the best possible way. As much as sometimes I want to resist structure, it's the same with the coaching process. Sometimes I resist it.
I think too, I was thinking about, we do a lot of work with needs and values. Accomplishment is one of those. And whether you call it accomplishment or success, fulfillment, however you might name what's important for you in working with your clients, it does give you a place to go, what is the standard here? And how am I consistently? It's like having a rubric to really measure. In teaching, we use those often to help grade or scale. And we're not giving ourselves a grade, but it is a different level of awareness when we do have markers and core competencies and those things before us to say, okay, this has been named.
I would agree. So not only in the session do you have that rubric, but what the ICF gives us with an organization like ours, with the real life process, is now by receiving this, we're an educator. We can give these CCEs. It's given us that same rubric, so to speak, to say, okay, we've met the qualifications, we've met the standards, and we can help someone else who's on that same journey. So I am just so excited that we're at this point. To be honest, even as we're recording this podcast, Erica, I'm like, I don't know that we've celebrated this well. And so for you and I to have this conversation is a way of us celebrating this milestone again and just remembering that we've come a long way since 2020 in the last 5 years to grow a program, to certify the number of people that we have around the globe, and now to get this ICF certification to be an educator in this realm. Yeah, I think it's exciting. And when you are doing this, if you're a coach that you have your ICF credential, or with someone who's on this journey and has their credential, I would just encourage you, don't just do something that's going to check a box and go, okay, I got 20 more hours. Do something that's going to really matter to the work that you do. And I believe our program does that. You're going to grow personally and professionally through learning the real life process and the components of the process, the tools that we have for assessments and all of the other things, and get those CCEs. But you're not going to walk away going, I could have done anything to check the box. It's not going to just be checking the box. We would just invite you. How could they find out more, Erica? Where's the places they could go to look into this a little bit more?
If your interest is piqued, you can go to therealifeprocess.com/get certified. And we have a waiting list that you can put your name on, and we'll make sure to send you information about our next upcoming cohort, and you can discern. And we'll be happy to meet with you if you have questions. We love those coffee chats and connections. If you're discerning this might be a next step for you and you need those credential renewal hours. I think the exciting thing for me too, Teresa, and listening to this is knowing that not all are on the ICF credential path, but all that are a part of the program are receiving that gold standard, those core competencies, those resource developments. So they're still getting the level of training, even if they're not collecting the certificate and turning those in for a credit. So that's really exciting.
I was thinking the same thing. So no matter if this is the path you're on or not, you can trust that the level that you're getting, if you're just like, I just want to be certified in the process because I help people in my church space, or I help people in my workspace. And this would be a really good thing for me to have for my own self-development, that you're getting that level of learning and training. I will say too, for both of us, just because we've done the same thing, we'll give a little shout out to Professional Christian Coaching Institute. That's where both of us did our ICF training, our initial training. There are lots of coach programs out there, but that's the one that you and I have both headed down the ICF path. When I first started in 2016, which is a long time ago now, I had no idea what ICF was. I didn't even know that PCCI, as we call it, was an ICF school. But as soon as I started looking into it, I knew, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to commit to get my bachelor's degree in coaching, then this is kind of school. In fact, a little side story here. I was actually going to Liberty University at the time online and doing some classes, thinking I would finish a program there. And I remember making the decision that if I'm going to invest my finances, that I'm going to pivot and I'm going to go into coach training instead. Maybe that's why I've always looked at it through the lens of, okay, I'm going to get my bachelor's in coaching. So shout out to PCCI. It's just been wonderful for us. It's been great training from a Christian coach perspective. It's one of the largest Christian coaching schools, if not the largest. I don't know the stats in the ICF world that does accreditation. And so little commercial for them. I know that's where we've both trained at.
Yeah, trained and teach. So
Yeah, we both teach there.
both there. So
Yeah, Erica's currently teaching there as well. She teaches that very first class of essentials. Check it out. Go to the realipeprocess.com/get certified. If that is not the lane and you've listened up to this point, I would just say if you're someone who's hiring a coach or you're a business owner, just know that you've learned about what's in the coaching space and what's the credential level that coaches have to go through, or did they just hang out a shingle? Erica, thanks for joining me today as we flesh this out a little bit, but also maybe celebrate it a little bit in something that we've accomplished. So I appreciate you being with me.
it's such a joy. Teaching and coaching are two of my favorite things. And so anytime we can have a conversation around that, I love it.
Yeah. So we just encourage you, live into the moments, friends. Take that next step toward whatever the invitation is you have to continue learning. And remember that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them. We've gotten to celebrate ours today through this conversation. So have a great week. We'll see you next week on the Doing What Matters podcast.